Hi, good morning. My name is Ben Carter. I'm the senior attorney at the Kentucky Equal Justice Center, a statewide nonprofit law firm and advocacy organization. In that capacity, we've had the chance to meet with and counsel and represent many Kentuckians who rent their homes. The first thing I want you to know about Kentucky landlord-tenant law in the context of the Safer Kentucky Act is that we actually have two different sets of laws governing landlord-tenant relations in Kentucky. Both are outdated. The most up-to-date rules govern places like Louisville and Lexington. They've adopted a set of rules called the Uniform Residential Landlord-Tenant Act. These were rules that were written almost 50 years ago, a compromise between landlords and renters, not perfect for either in the America of the 1970s, but fair enough for both. The rest of the state has even more outdated landlord-tenant laws. These laws don't even require landlords to meet basic habitability standards when they're renting properties to Kentuckians. This leads many of the 30% of Kentuckians to live in unsafe housing. Black mold is everywhere. Dangerous electrical problems, plumbing that doesn't work, no running water. Meanwhile, renters are paying hundreds of dollars in application fees to landlords in their search for safe and affordable housing. Now, the only thing that the Safer Kentucky Act does for renters is to increase the criminal penalties they face for quote-unquote destruction of rental property. The legislature acted to make it very clear that destroying rental property, intentional or wanton, could be punished as a felony or a misdemeanor. And what this act does is decrease the amount of property that renters have to quote unquote destroy from $1,000 to $500. Anything above $500 is a felony now under the Safer Kentucky Act. And it also makes a misdemeanor for a renter to destroy property from $0 to $500. Almost every single renter I have ever spoken with has had a landlord who has told. It's pretty telling to me that the Safer Kentucky Act doesn't include passing a requirement that landlords meet basic health and safety requirements. Instead of passing these habitability standards and requiring landlords to do the bare minimum, all it does is turn prosecutors into debt collectors and weaponizes the criminal justice system to allow landlords to steal more security deposits. A truly Safer Kentucky Act would update Kentucky's landlord-tenant laws by adopting the revised Uniform Residential Landlord-Tenant Act. Representative Kulkarni has already proposed this in House Bill 76. That would make for a safer Kentucky. We can guarantee basic habitability to Kentuckians who rent their homes. We can outlaw landlords' practice of charging hundreds of dollars of application fees for Kentuckians who are just looking for a safe, affordable place to call home. Landlords in Kentucky already have their boots on the necks of the 30% of Kentuckians who rent their homes. Landlords already have enough money to pay someone to shine their boots. But these provisions ensure that landlords' boots in Kentucky will be shined by the spit of the bootlickers sponsoring this bill.
Good morning. My name is Kaylee Raymer. I'm a policy analyst at the Kentucky Center for Economic Policy. I'm also an attorney, a lifelong Kentuckian, and a former public defender. All Kentuckians deserve to feel safe in their communities, but sending more people to prison and for longer will not make us safer. Yet, House Bill 5 is full of tried and failed approaches that would do just that. Creating new crimes, increasing the penalties for existing crimes in extreme ways, expanding Kentucky's already broad definition of what qualifies as a violent crime, and even an antiquated 3 strikes and you're out provision that would put Kentuckians away for life. Research tells us that longer sentences don't decrease violent crime or deter people from committing it. The people are almost entirely unaware of sentencing details, and there's a diminished shock value when a long sentence becomes even longer. Research also tells us that people convicted of violent crime tend to age out of criminal behavior, meaning we're keeping folks locked up long after they pose any threat. And the most serious offenses are usually symptoms of deeper rooted community needs. So not only does House Bill 5 go against the research, it's also not an appropriate response to what's going on in Kentucky. Reducing violent crime is something that everyone here cares about, but violent crime is coming down in Kentucky and across the country, despite a temporary uptick during the pandemic. The human costs of House Bill 5 sentencing enhancements would be significant. These enhancements will separate more families and for longer in a state where 1 in 10 children already experiences the incarceration of a parent. And we know that folks who spend time behind bars have worse mental and physical health outcomes and greater financial instability. And the fiscal costs of House Bill 5 would be significant. Incarceration squeezes out money for investments that we know work to reduce crime, like education and housing. It costs Kentucky taxpayers an average of $105 per day to house one person in our state prison. And we're already spending $722 million this year on corrections alone. With more people in prison and for longer, this spending will only go up. If Kentucky were a country, we'd be the 7th most incarcerated place in the world. If more and longer incarceration were the solution to our problems, wouldn't we have solved them already? Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Felicia Newman, and I am the Director for Policy and for the Louisville Urban League. Before my position with the Louisville Urban League, I was a practicing attorney, and most importantly, I started my career in 2005 as an assistant Commonwealth attorney in Jefferson County, and I served under Dave Stengel for 6 years in the Narcotics Division. Today, I will address the criminal law portion of the House Bill 5. While there are many bad policy positions in this bill for which the League vehemently opposes, I will address 3. I will get a little more granular than our previous speaker and point out why some of these policy initiatives are unnecessary. Number 1, the bill creates new felonies such as carjacking that are needless. The penal code already has an offense that covers the stealing of a car, and it's called robbery 1, and it is a Class B felony. There is absolutely no reason to create this offense or any new offenses. Why would we create an offense that already exists, except to score political points? The way the penal code is written currently, prosecutors have all the offenses and discretion at their disposal to cover all the crimes that a person may commit. Number 2, the increasing of punishments and the reclassification of crimes is unnecessary. For example, House Bill 5 wants to create a 3 strikes law, as previously mentioned, and increase penalties regarding fentanyl. Prosecutors can use the persistent felony offender statute to increase penalties. The PFO statute already contemplates giving harsher sentences to repeat offenders. A prosecutor has the discretion to charge as many offenses as he or she wishes, depending on the facts of the case, and argue that these offenses run consecutively or one after another in order to obtain longer sentences for certain defendants. We do not need to take away prosecutorial discretion in sentencing defendants. It will cripple the prosecutor by making it harder to settle cases, causing more delays in justice, more trials, and costing local governments more money. The county jails, finally, are overrun with people awaiting trial. Defendants are dying awaiting trial. Cities' governments are paying out millions in civil suits. We will exacerbate this problem by incarcerating more people and for longer time. The 52-year-old war on drugs has been an abject failure. Study after study shows incarceration and higher penalties have no effect on drug use or drug trafficking. Finally, we cannot continue to incarcerate everyone. It is a purely emotional response. We should only incarcerate people for long periods of time when we are terrified of the violent acts they might commit, not because we are angry that they are making our lives inconvenient and have a mental health problem like addiction. Please call your legislator to vote no on House Bill 5. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much to all of our presenters. We have a wonderful opportunity to hear from others who are working on some of the other aspects of this. As we know, the House Bill 5 also criminalizes the poorest Kentuckians, and in particular has had some very strong implications for those who are unsheltered. So I'd like to, at this point, see if we could add Bill Smith to join us and to share some reflections about that particular aspect of this bill.
Good morning. I'm Bill Smith. I'm a native Kentuckian. I grew up in Edmonson County, Kentucky. I spent 40 years as a client or a worker in the field. There are 4,000 presently homeless folks on any given night in the state of Kentucky. We lack over 90,000 units of affordable rental for those owners. When I was a little boy, one of the things I learned in school was the Kentucky state motto: united we stand, divided we fall. This anti-camping measure is cruel and unnecessary. We already have laws on the books to address behaviors associated with street camping. People have nowhere to go. Cities lack enough shelters. Affordable housing is non-existent. The majority of counties don't even have any shelters. We should be funding services that work, that are proven, rather than add a new charge against people who are homeless. Housing first and case management works. I know this because I am a recipient of a housing voucher that I'm waiting to receive an apartment pretty soon. Had that not been in place, I could not get an apartment. So it is important that we have these housing measures that are tried and proven that work. Proven to be successful, evidence-based that they're successful. We should not jeopardize funding for these critical need programs. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bill, and thanks to all who are seeking for a better opportunity. I'd like to call now on Carrie Cole from the Bail Project as we think about these particular aspects. Carrie, just give me a sec here while I add you in. There
Thanks,
we go.
Ken. Awesome. Perfect. Good morning, everybody. My name is Carrie Cole. I'm the Kentucky Policy Advocacy and Partnerships Manager for the Bail Project. I grew up in Louisville and I work here in Kentucky. This is my home. The Bail Project is a national nonprofit organization that is dedicated to restoring the presumption of innocence by advocating for the elimination of cash bail, the practice of tying a person's pretrial liberty to money. In addition to posting bail for free to low-income individuals, the Bail Project gathers evidence from its intervention to inform policymaking on matters of pretrial justice and pretrial incarceration. The Bail Project operated as a charitable bail organization in Louisville from 2018 to 2023, where we provided free bail assistance to over 4,200 Kentuckians. By our estimates, our work in Kentucky prevented on average 37 days in jail per person, which amounted to more than 200,000 total jail days averted and as much as 15 million taxpayer dollars saved through reduced jail administrative costs. While preventing the unnecessary incarceration that results from wealth-based detention, our clients in Louisville returned to 91% of their court dates, lending crucial evidence to the idea that cash bail is unnecessary to ensure that someone returns to court. Cash bail creates a two-tiered system of justice that benefits the rich and disadvantages those without money, upending the fundamental principle in our justice system that everyone is innocent until proven guilty. Charitable bail organizations provide an essential service that Kentuckians cannot afford to lose with the bail system in its current form. That is why we come today in staunch opposition to House Bill 5, the Safer Kentucky Act. What this bill sponsors and its supporters of the legislation fails to understand is that the provisions outlined in the bill will not protect public safety. In fact, it will work against it. House Bill 5 is unfair and un-American, subverting the presumption of innocence. It would prohibit charitable bail organizations from posting bail amounts of $5,000 or more and prevent them from supporting people charged with a variety of alleged offenses. Effectively, this is doubling down on the two-tiered system, wealth-based nature of the cash bail system in Kentucky. It privileges wealthy people who will still be able to pay to secure their freedom, regardless of the underlying safety concerns, over poor people. Additionally, this legislation contains an overly broad definition of charitable bail organizations with onerous restrictions that might even apply to churches or a mom and pop shop putting up a GoFundMe to support their son. We all deserve to be safe, but legislation like the Safer Kentucky Act cannot deliver on that promise because it entrenches policies fueling mass incarceration, which will only harm the poorest and most vulnerable Kentuckians. Instead of introducing legislations to provide funding for necessary preventative services that address unmet needs like unemployment, housing insecurity, mental illness, and addiction, all of which are root causes for justice involvement, House Bill 5 contains a myriad of misguided provisions, including regulations on the charitable bail organizations, which will only harm the most disadvantaged and already vulnerable Kentuckians in the state. We all deserve to be safe, no matter what we look like, where we come from, or what money is in our wallets. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Finally, I'd like to call on Tara Hyde, who is with People Advocating Recovery. As we know, all of these issues have a great deal to do with how we are responding to the crisis of opioid and drug addiction, substance use disorders. Tara, glad to have you with us this morning.
Thank you for having me. So I am Tara Hyde, the CEO of People Advocating Recovery, and thank you all so much for offering this space for us to have these discussions, these very meaningful and important discussions on this issue. People Advocating Recovery, we work to remove barriers for those that are in or seeking recovery. And this bill potentially causes some unintended consequences of enforcing more barriers on individuals who are seeking recovery and or need intervention and access points. So there are a variety of issues that we are concerned about in this bill. I will speak to a specific provision that we want to discuss today, and that is enhancing the penalty for fentanyl delivery. Addressing the opioid crisis is imperative. Defining death by delivery as murder for individuals selling fentanyl and increasing penalties will discourage individuals from seeking help during overdose situations due to fear of legal repercussions. We know and have adopted provisions in earlier years in 2016 for the Good Samaritan Law, and we have seen amazing success with having access and to being able to call 911 in an intervention crisis. And having this provision be included in the upcoming legislative session will only cause more barriers for individuals who could need to utilize that resource. This language is broad and will sweep up individuals who are in crisis or those who are using substances in groups. Individuals who may be sharing substances or using in groups could be swept up in this legislation, in this language as it's currently drafted. We know that there are other states that have drafted similar language in their legislative process that has impacted their communities as well to that point. This language wants to address the opioid crisis, but instead it will cause greater harm to those with substance use disorder by removing the ability to access resources if convicted under these provisions. We know that some of these heightened offenses will remove access for individuals who are looking for resources thereafter. It could remove their ability to apply for assistance or having transitional care. We want to We understand the need for having a balanced system and holding individuals accountable for actions and for harm. However, we also need to understand that there has to be the other side when an individual does want to participate in a restorative justice experience, and that continuation for them to be a returning citizen. And if we are enhancing these penalties, it will just cause them to continue on this cycle of recidivism. Because they can't see or are unable to access detrimental resources for them to improve their life. And, if we want to support individuals in a way that's going to help our communities economically, our workforce, and our community, our neighbors, our friends, our family, we have to look at both sides of the coin. There has to be a very, very strong balance between justice and public health. We have to work together. In other communities across the United States, we have seen this type of response to the opioid crisis and how it perpetuates the stigma of substance use disorder. And in fact, research suggests an increase in overdoses in those communities. We see that. The research is showing that. And we need to talk about it more. In the Commonwealth, we have begun to shift our way of thinking already. In the last legislative session, we passed historical access to test strips to protect individuals who are using substances, regulating recovery residences to be of top quality, and broader access to resources. Supporting legislation like this is how we make Kentucky safer. This policy is a continuation of the war on drugs and the policies that are stemming from the cocaine and crack epidemic, leading to some of the most highest rates of mass incarceration in our country. We've seen that doing this sort of effort can cause a huge effect on our communities, and especially a huge effect on our Black and Brown communities. And we need to shift away from this thinking and shift away from this approach. We know that it doesn't work. So with House Bill 5, this takes us back to that time in our history. A Safer Kentucky Act would need to look at balancing justice with public health, as its original provision is widely sweeping, will incarcerate people who need access to resources and treatment. We are suggesting that people vote no on House Bill 5, that legislators vote no. We are also asking any person that's out there to encourage your legislator to meet with your local resources, meet with those recovery support organizations, meet with those treatment providers, and see the success that individuals can have with the right support and the right provisions in place. And we highly encourage all of our constituents across the Commonwealth to their legislators about the concern with House Bill 5.
Thank you very much, Tara. Thank you for that comprehensive understanding of how some of these policies are really a return to things that we know don't work. We know they don't work. So this is not evidence-based, and I think that's one of the things that we've, as the Council of Churches, as we've studied this, we certainly have grave concerns that what's happening here is a return to an emotional response that doesn't actually change or make us safer. So thank you for all of our speakers for helping us understand and see how that might be. Here's what we need to do together is exactly as Tara suggested and as others have suggested, call your legislature and let them know that this House Bill 5 is not making us safer and will be a waste of critical dollars that could be directed to programs that actually work. You'll see at the bottom of the screen that number, 1-800-372-7181, is there. That's the message line that will get you the opportunity to leave a message. Now, we'd like to ask you to leave a message not only for your local representative, but also to leave a message for the entire House Judiciary Committee at this point. We've gotten word that sometime this week, possibly as soon as tomorrow, House Judiciary will hear this bill. We want to have a very strong, large number of calls that are suggesting this is not ready for prime time, that this bill does not make us safer. So you call 1-800-372-7181, and they'll say, who would you like to leave a message for? And you say, the House Judiciary Committee, and perhaps you'd also like, and I'd like to leave it for my representative. You can then leave a message, a brief message. They'll transcribe it just as you deliver it, and it will be printed out on a sheet of paper and handed to the legislators. legislators. This is an effective way to get a barometer of public opinion. If, as you have heard today, you agree with many of us that this bill is both a return to tired policies that are ineffective, will jeopardize costs and monies that could be diverted to programs that do work, and criminalizes the poorest and most vulnerable among us in ways that are both unnecessary and unhelpful, then call and let them know. They need to hear from you, and particularly if you can use the magic words, "I'm a constituent," when you talk to your own representative, that often will move your note to the top of the pile. There are other things you can do. First and foremost, we are encouraging any person who is in a community to find out what your local resources are for substance use disorder, for sheltering the unhoused, get involved, add your spirit, add your money, add your time to these things. It isn't just at the legislature, it's all of us. All of us are responsible for keeping track of one another. That oft-quoted phrase, "Am I my brother's keeper?" The answer for those of us in the Christian and Jewish traditions is yes, we are. The answer to that question is yes. So let's work together in all the ways, both local and at the policy level, so that we are in fact caring for the least, the lowest, and the last, who have the fewest vulnerabilities, the fewest abilities to address their vulnerabilities at this time. My friends, we apologize for the technical delays and the many ways in which you have suffered under the vagaries of the electrons in the world at the moment. But together, I truly believe we are making a difference. I want to thank all of our speakers today, and particularly thank all of you who have made the time and effort to be watching this broadcast whenever you are able to find it. And we're certainly able and willing to answer questions if you'd like to reach out. You can always reach the Kentucky Council of Churches in a variety of ways, but certainly the easiest is our Facebook group page. And you can join that Facebook group page at kycouncilofchurches.org/legislative info. That will get you on our mailing list and get our action alerts. You're also able to call the numbers and reach Melissa, our executive director. Thanks to all of you this day, and we bid you well. I'd like to return it now to Todd Smith to just have a brief closing word of prayer as we close out. Todd, can I call upon you to close us?
Yeah, thank you again, Kent, for all that you have done this morning. I know this has been a rather stressful past 24 hours for you, so thank you for all of your work. Despite the technical difficulties, this has been a day where we have joined our voices in public witness. I would also like to say thank you to all of our presenters and to everyone who was here today, and especially to Bishop Stowe for bringing such a wonderful prayer at the beginning of our time together. I'm going to give you less of a wonderful benediction, but one that is the pray we can take with us as we continue to do this work. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face to shine on you and be gracious to you. The Lord turn his face toward you and give you peace. Amen. Thank you all once more.
Thank you all. All right.
Are we clear?
I believe. Give it a sec here.